in theaters now in very limited release, but also coming very soon to Netflix because it's a Netflix film, is White Noise, starring Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig. This is based on the novel by Don DeLillo, and I went into this movie completely blind. Like, literally, I didn't know what movie. I was taken to this movie in a theater, which was very cool. I went to the Paris Theater in New York City, which is apparently the last single screen theater left in New York City, and also it's a long running art house theater that was in danger of closing in 2019, and Netflix bought it, and it is now known as the Netflix Theater. So when Netflix has a movie coming out, they will play it at the Paris. So people in the region at least get a chance to go see this movie theatrically. So I was taken as a surprise to see this movie that I didn't know anything about it. I'd heard the title that it was a book once, didn't know what it was about, didn't know what I was seeing until I walked up to the theater and saw it on the marquee. Very cool, too, that the Paris, being funded by Netflix, it's like they put a lot into it. So there's posters for the movie outside. You go into the lobby, there's multiple posters for the movie, different style of poster. And then they have like a mini poster that's about, well, bigger than my hands. We'll show you, show you on this screen, a mini poster of a specific different design that you could take for free. And then they had shrink-wrapped lobby card sets, free for the taking, in these racks in the lobby, 2 different sets of lobby card sets. So it was a very interesting experience to see this in the theater. Saw it on 35 millimeter film, which is, again, interesting and unusual. And all the trailers before White Noise were for upcoming Netflix films, which probably will also play at the Paris Theater. So enough of a review of the Paris Theater. Paris Theater was lovely. Not a lot of legroom. Other than that, it was lovely. White Noise. Completely going in unbiased. Had no idea what I was going to get, no idea what the movie was going to be, and boy did I not like this movie at all. This is directed by Noah Baumbach, who did Marriage Story with Adam Driver from just, a couple years ago, which was very good. Squid and the Whale, Francis Ha. He's done a lot of indie stuff with Greta Gerwig as well. So, just, as I said, Adam Driver, Greta Gerwig, the stars, Don Cheadle is also in it, and it's this really weird, oddball, like, satire, I guess, where Driver is a college professor set in the 80s, set I think in like 84, I want to say, 84, 85. Adam Driver plays a college professor who teaches like a Hitler studies course. Gerwig is his second wife, and the family is a mix of kids from previous relationships of the both of them. And Gerwig is a housewife, and she's just odd. She's taking these little white pills for some reason. And there's just a whole lot going on. There's this toxic cloud, airborne toxic event or whatever they call it, that happens when a train crashes nearby, and this cloud is hanging over the town, and people are fleeing in panic and quarantining. And Don Cheadle plays a sort of like a pop cultural studies professor at the same college who wants to do a big thing about Elvis, and it's just weird. I didn't think it was funny at all. It tries to be funny and like aggressively quirky, and it just wasn't. It is sort of aggressive about trying to make you never forget that it's the 80s, where there's never a shot almost where there isn't some kind of vintage logo. Like every bottle, it's almost like a commercial. Every soda bottle, you can always see the logo when it's sitting down. There's always something recognizable in the frame. Every time they're at the dinner table, there's a game of Simon, or it's a Walkman, or it's some kind of 80s thing that doesn't let you forget. The fashion is, doesn't let you forget it's the 80s and the hairstyles. And I just didn't like it. I thought it was excruciatingly boring and tedious and aggressively quirky, and Greta Gerwig was just not good in it. And they had her acting in this really strange way. And yes, she's supposed to be on some kind of odd medication. The car disagrees or agrees. On some kind of odd medication, and that's part of like this mystery of what is she taking and why. And it was like 2.5 hours, I think, of just tedium for me. Like, it really did not work at all for me. I'm sure there are people who will like this. There's this big musical number at the end, which even that I felt like could have been shot and choreographed a bit better. Like, it just, I don't know what it was. It certainly was not cheap. It didn't feel like a cheap movie. It felt like a theatrical film. It didn't seem out of place seeing it in the theater, as sometimes seeing made-for-streaming movies does. But it was just bad. Like the dialogue was bad, and everybody, it felt very written. It felt like people were speechifying and talking in ways that people really don't talk. And I left the film and I thought about, there's a lot of movies I've seen that I love, older movies, where people do make speeches and they do talk in ways that people don't really talk in real life, and it just sort of fits with the movie. But for this one, it just felt really awkward. Maybe awkward is what I felt the whole time. Like it never. And it was also a movie that, as I'm watching it, I keep waiting for it to get started. Like I keep waiting for it to sort of, because a lot of films kind of set up the characters in the world and then they kind of click in and go. And this felt like it never clicked in. I'm like, well, is it about Adam Driver and his restlessness? Is it about, what is it about? Is it about this weird toxic thing? Okay, it's about this toxic thing now. But then it's kind of not. And then maybe it's about all these things. Maybe I'm sure I'll be told that I'm not smart and I just don't get it. But I hadn't even seen a trailer. Like literally went in and let this movie work on me on its own terms, and I couldn't stand it. I kept just like waiting for it to end. I just got to a point where it's like, yeah, I used to, when I watch films at home, I often will give it what I call the 20-minute test, which if I get to 20 minutes where I'm actively disliking something, I'll usually just shut it off, because I've never seen a film that like turns itself around after 20 minutes and suddenly becomes great for me, for my taste. And life's too short, and there's too many films I have literally piled up everywhere that I want to watch. So, but I was in the theater, so no better place. I'm never going to like anything more than seeing it in the theater. Audience was great. Picture and sound were good, great. And I really, really did not like White Noise. So if you've read the book, let me know if this is a good adaptation of the book, or if you think I'm missing the point or something. But it just felt like a pretentious art house kind of wank and waste of time for me. So, and there are people who all do good work. Like Marriage Story was great. I've seen greatness from the people who are in this movie, but boy, did White Noise not work for me. So in theaters now, as I say this, but not for long, because Netflix films tend to have like a cursory run in theaters, but available on Netflix is White Noise.